Hi, everybody. Welcome back to that Eurovision podcast. My God, it's been a long time since I've had the hosting chair for a bit. I'm a bit scared. It's Tim here, and I will just say that we're recording this in June, and I haven't hosted TEP for well more than half a year, and I'm a bit iffy. So if I'm a bit rusty, I am very, very sorry. Um, it's a good day. It's in the middle of June, so obviously we've had some news about Eurovision 2023. So I'm not gonna go delve into that because this episode specifically is like a retrospective and just coming back 22. And I just gave away the topic of this episode, which you'll know anyways. But yeah, I've been doing great. It's been quite a whirlwind of the month, but I'm refreshed and I'm ready for the 2023 season. And joining me is
Hi, it's Rosie. I am very happy to be back podcasting, and wow, a lot has happened since we last did one of these. We've had the entirety of 2022, and we are now starting to make preparations for the 2023 contest, and that's all being very interesting right now. So there's definitely a lot to talk about, and I'm super, super excited to get talking about it, essentially. It means that I'm not boring Lewis's ear off talking about it, so someone else is listening to me instead, which, yay!
Yeah, Hi, I'm Lewis, and I'm really glad to be back on the podcast. The other side of 2022. It's it was. I imagine we're going to get more into it in the program, but 2022 was quite a special year for both me and Rosie, Eurovision wise, and looking at 2023, it's with the hosting news that's coming out, I am super excited to see how that turns out as well. So yeah,
okay. So moving on. Well, this podcast is gonna look into referring back to obviously 2022 because we haven't had a chance to debrief and just look at what just happened. Okay, then. So let's start this off by going over to Rosie and Lewis, just because this is their first Eurovision. Because I can talk to you all I want, because I'm just going to compare, but these two have had their first Eurovision experience. So I just wanted to ask the both of you, what was it like? Was it what you were expecting, more or less? Were you underwhelmed? So run us through how that week and a half was for you being in Italy?
I think one of the things, and probably the biggest thing that I possibly wasn't prepared for, is it really did feel like being in a bubble for those 2 weeks. Everything, all I was doing was living, eating, breathing, dreaming Eurovision, and it was so unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. And it was really joyful, to be honest. It was a really special sort of atmosphere. And I really did not expect it to be that overwhelming in a way. And I use that generally very positively. At some points, it was just like, I need to go an introvert now a little bit sometimes. But I was surrounded by some incredible people, and having had 3 years at this point to kind of throw myself into the fandom, and I was meeting people there who I hadn't met before but who I'd sort of known and spoken to, and even people who we'd never planned to meet up. We just ran into each other in the village or in the queue for something or in a restaurant somewhere, and it was amazing. And I just kind of want to give a huge shout out to everybody I met during those 2 weeks because it was fantastic. Doing the press stuff, there was so much going on, and again, it was absolutely incredible. And what an incredible time it was to do it, and what an amazing team to do it with as well. It was so much fun, and it does always feel like a privilege, and I really hope it's not something I'm ever going to take for granted, because some of those moments I remember are going to really stick with me. I was remembering earlier when we'd seen Sam's first rehearsal finally, and the entire hotel room broke out in "It's coming home, it's coming home." And it was a feeling like I can't describe. And again, some of those rehearsals where we really saw something really magical happen, and so much of that magic was never lost. I was lucky enough to go to one run of each of the shows. So I went to the live show for semi one, I went to the family show for semi two, and I went to the jury show for the grand final. And none of that magic was lost. And I did worry that it was possibly going to be, having seen those performances at that point 6 times in some cases. And no, didn't happen at all. So that was amazing. And the last thing I'm going to say, again, some of the whole experience is so surreal. I remember, I'm sure Lewis and Tim will also remember, we'd gone out for food and we were walking back to the hotel, and Malik Harris just walked towards us, and it's just like you're seeing all these people that you sort of look up to and admired, and they're just there. You walk down the street and Subwoofer are doing a flash mob, or you walk through the square and Siti Zeni and Mia Dimsic are playing a little busking concert. And again, it's just an experience unlike anything else. I remember we were rushing to get to the Eurovillage one night, and we just saw Nadir and the entire Azerbaijani delegation walking opposite us, and it's just like, wow, it's so surreal and it's amazing.
Yeah, it was such an amazing experience. I mean, I think Rosie said a lot of it, but what really struck me about it is how friendly everyone is. Just all these people from across the globe, just all different walks of life and whatever, just united in this one crazy little contest. And like you could just for those 2 weeks, it just felt like you could just walk up to like almost anyone on the street and just get into a conversation about, what do you think? What do you think about the acts? Have you seen the rehearsals? Oh yeah. Like one thing that really stuck with me was when me and Rosie were waiting for a bus, and we got chatting to somebody else, and I ended up being interviewed for German national media, just because we'd started talking about what we thought about the acts, and it turned out I was the first person he'd met who actually liked Malik's song, which I hope. After people saw it live, I hope people change their minds on it, because I deserve better than what I got. But yeah, yeah, it's just such a special experience, and also Turin is just lovely. Like I, for some aspects of Eurovision itself, I can imagine another city maybe being better, but it's such a lovely place just to spend a couple of weeks. Beautiful surroundings, and the weather was incredible, and great food everywhere you turned, and all that just added to the whole thing, and it was just such a lovely time. Yeah, I'm I'm so glad I got the chance to go. It's something I've been thinking about doing ever since I first watched Eurovision, and to actually go out there and see it live is just it, it's surreal, but it's very special, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to do it.
Well, for me, obviously you had your first experiences, so it's nice to see that you're able. That was your first Eurovision. For me, I think it's yeah, 2016, 18, 19. Yeah, it's my fourth. It's my fourth Eurovision heading into person because you know Miss Rona, decided to kill my chances for 2021. So why not? Um, okay. Well, I never get tired of going to Eurovision. Like, let's just say certain aspects were a bit, challenging, but we'll delve into that later on. But I'll say is overall, despite all the hoops that we've had to go through, it's nice to be back in person. Just because no Eurovision is the same. Like, that's an obvious thing, and as much as there was a lot of challenges, like getting to Italy and doing all the press work, getting some interviews with some people to ask, which I wanted to give a thanks to for giving us your time, even though we're just a brand new site. It's really heartwarming and it's really amazing. And like Roy said, like meeting the people, it's like, oh my god, I know you from Twitter and or online, and it's just weird running into people like they know who you are, but you don't know who they are, or you know them through a username. It's like, are you thingy from Twitter? And you're like, yes, and it blows my mind every single time. But
Just following up on that, I have to say, if anyone ever goes to Eurovision, have someone like Tim with you, like someone who just is so willing to just if we see someone in the street, just go up with a book of autographs and get photos, and it just makes the whole thing. Oh, it was incredible. Like I could not do that. I don't talk to people I know a lot of the time, and just yeah. Thank you for being the extrovert we all needed.
to be fair though, I will say I got 24 out of 40. So I'll take that. I'll take that, and I think I managed to get signed about half of that, so I'll take it as well. But anywho, moving on. Okay, Turin. As I've said, we would go back to Italy, but like, personally, how was the experience being in Turin for you guys?
I know that there's been sort of a lot of sort of criticism about some of the organizational aspects of things, and I guess from my perspective, I don't really have a lot of comparison points, having not been to any other Eurovisions before. So for me, I found the experience generally very positive. There were certain aspects of it that were kind of not always ideal. So, for example, sort of long queues to get into the village, for example, and us not necessarily managing to get in there on the night of the final, which we had really wanted to do, but there were just so many people, and there was such a strong sort of popularity of the contest there as well, which was nice. And I did really enjoy Turin as a city. I thought there was a really nice balance for me in terms of Eurovision stuff to do and non-Eurovision stuff to do. Lewis and I took a day and went to the Cinema Museum, which was great. Really, really loved that as a place. And we went out to the beach for a day, which was also really, really lovely. And I really enjoyed the city as an atmosphere. Again, I don't really have a comparison point, and also I generally really love sort of Italian culture, and I really enjoyed being there, sort of having been doing a year of Duolingo Italian and that sort of thing. So I really enjoyed just the whole feel of the city, I think. I know that it's not necessarily for everyone. And like I say, not every aspect of things, I think, necessarily from what people have said, stands up to some of the Eurovisions that have happened previously. At the same time, they were contending still with the pandemic, and they still had quite heavy restrictions when we were there in terms of things like mask wearing and stuff like that, which not everyone was following. And I still followed them, and I still brought COVID home, but That was fine. I went to a big event. I can't really have expected anything different. But yeah, as a city, I really enjoyed it as a place to be, even if I know some people who have been to previous Eurovisions have had better experiences in other places.
Yeah. I loved it as a place, as just a place. Being in Turin is such a beautiful city, and there's so many little places to go and explore and see. And it's not just that it's a lovely holiday to Italy, though, it was a lovely holiday to Italy, but also doing that in the weeks of Eurovision, and just, you're heading off on this little walk to the church that oversees the town, and then when you get there, there's a group that there's a group of Spanish fans, and you can just start chatting with them, or somebody else that you know from a different press site. And I do think that really added to it. It was such um, a lovely atmosphere and a great place, but the organisation of the contest it wasn't great. Like, yes, like Rosie, I don't have other comparison points, but I mean, I did kind of want more in what they put on, like the Eurovision Village. Like, that was lots of fun when we went there, when we could get in, which was not always. Like, on the night of the contest itself, we got there at like 5:30, 6,
Yeah.
and the queue was already back right up, and by the time it was about a couple of an hour or so later, it was a scrum of absolute free for all at the front, and apparently they ran out of water. Um, so yeah, that there were some aspects of the organisation that weren't great, but also when we did go to the Eurovision Village on previous acts, and then seeing the Eurovision acts get to perform on stage, that was great. Like seeing Cornelia Jacobs perform live, amazing, and so many other things like that. But I don't know, is it is it selfish that I kind of wanted there to be more Eurovision? Like when we went to the Eurovision Park, every night there was, two or three Eurovision acts, and who'd get two or three songs each, and then they'd finish the night with a big hour-long set by an Italian act, and I don't know, I just kind of. I just kind of wanted more Eurovision at that point, even if it was just like a Sanremo act or something. I would have preferred if they'd, if the big acts in the Eurovision Village had been Eurovision related, and I think that was a shame. And yeah, with all the queues, it was a little disorganized. But having said all that, none of it ruined the experience. Like, we still had such an amazing time, and it is an incredibly beautiful city. Yeah, I think, and like Rosie said, they were dealing with a lot of challenges at the time. It was a difficult situation. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to going to the next one. I'll say, for both because I had such a great time at this one, and because I want to see a Eurovision that doesn't have some of the problems this one had.
Okay, for me, obviously it is different, and obviously we are contending with the pandemic still. Even though the most restrictions have loosened up a bit, so we have a full arena, we have the Euro Village where there's lots of people, masks were still on. Well, masks were still on. um, all I'll say is, E. Rye has not hosted Eurovision since the 90s, and I mean, it's nice that we had some sort of, we had the contest. Let's just put it at that. We had the contest back to about 90% of where it should be, and we're okay with that. And there's stuff going on in the town, and I mean, Rosie were able to attend the turquoise carpet. um Things I'm grateful for, and I wish that next year, restrictions would be much looser and we're able to go back to where things were. Turin itself, it's nice. There's a more than capable amount in terms of transportation, just because there were points where, like, it did get a bit difficult, especially in the not in the final, to get home, or when we were attending the jury show. Like, I think the jury show lasted till 1, and then we couldn't get out of the arena till about nearly half 1, and there were no more trams, so we had to me and my friend Jade had to take a taxi back. So it's all those little things that, but we'll delve into that a bit. But overall, Turin is a lovely city, lots of lovely people, lots of good food, especially with Rosie and Jane. And also shout out to Costa, who's also appeared on here. Like, we always hang out, always go to Grom after dinner. I'd go back just just to be in Turin, just to experience it again without the Eurovision, which I hope I get to do again, because I couldn't do it for this year where I wanted to explore the city without the decorations. So hopefully I'll be able to do that for 2023. Okay, moving on. I know Lewis has answered most of this, but what's something that you didn't like, or like wasn't enough of, like Lois said there wasn't that much in Eurovision in terms of performance. Like, what do you think was lacking, or what do you think Turin could or Italy could improve on, should they host another Eurovision Song Contest in the future?
I feel like possibly the biggest thing, and I think this does tie back into what both of you have said, is that I think at times they seemed a little unprepared for just the scale of things. I think they weren't quite prepared for so many people in a lot of their sort of venues and things like that. And I think that's the cause of some of those sort of longer queues at the village and things like that. Like, they might have wanted to have sort of smaller bases elsewhere in the city as well, something like that. I mean, Turin's full of public squares. Have some screens set up in those or something like that. I mean, of course, you'd have to deal with things like security and stuff like that, but it's something that could have been considered, I think, in terms of just sort of understanding the scale of everything that was going to happen in the city. And I think that's probably a relic of the fact that Eurovision doesn't have the huge following in Italy that maybe you might get in other countries, as well as the fact that you've got the pandemic and the fact that they haven't hosted it since the 90s. I think the entire shape of the contest has changed since then. And I think they did a great job in terms of putting on a show that reflected what Eurovision is like today. But in terms of the infrastructure in the city and things that were put on, I think they could have sort of possibly anticipated some more people, I think.
Yeah, I think Rosie's really got to the root of it. It's not that it was deliberately badly organised. It was just, well, obviously not, but it was just that they didn't really anticipate the amount of people, or specifically the amount of international audience. I think that would uh, that would come into the contest. I think they sort of planned things a little too much based on the domestic audience, and maybe I'm just saying that because I'm not part of the domestic audience. I am the international audience, but yeah, it felt like yeah, they just didn't quite know how many people were coming and how sort of passionate Eurovision fans get about Eurovision. How it sort of for for that time, I think most people in the city would have been quite happy with all Eurovision all the time, and I don't think they really considered that. Which I think for me it was a problem, but I'm not sure if it is a problem in a wider sense. Like I have thought before that the Eurovision community can be a little insular sometimes, and it is cool to really immerse yourself in another country's culture and get to see all these acts that you'd never have travelled for and all these places. But I would have liked more Eurovision in my Eurovision. As simple as that.
I think for me, I do agree. I did feel well. One of the things I agree with is the fact that it did feel a bit that things were done at the very, and I mean very last minute. Like even with the turquoise corporate, we had online accreditation, and obviously we were just thought, okay, we're not gonna do anything this day because we're just gonna stream. And then all of a sudden, the day before, they're like, "Oh, online press are able to attend the turquoise carpet," and we were all scrambling and like, okay, let's go. And then what else was there? This is the sheer volume. You said about the Eurovision Village during the final. I got there at 3:30. So basically, like about 6 hours before the show was due to start, and it was already heaving. And there were so many queues for the food and everything, and the fact that it's just one place, and there was this huge crowd. Like, luckily enough, I was with a friend, and we were able to just get a seat near towards the front. It was very chaotic, but we got there in the end. And another thing I'd say is maybe work with the local government in terms of transportation, because I know that they did extend it, like, okay, one, or it ends at one, two, but in some cases that didn't work at all, because the shows themselves can overrun, especially in the jury shows, because the big five can perform during these shows. So there was a point where me and my friend Jade nearly got stuck because we nearly missed the last tram. So luckily enough, we managed to get it. But all in all, maybe a good work with the local government further in just ensuring that the resources are there, and also maybe just improving on activities. You had the Eurovision Village, but like that's it. And you'll have your banners all over Turin, and it did feel a bit lacking personally for me, before you all come for me. But I will say that despite that, I think we were able to get through it with a bit more hoops to like jump. We did manage to get there in the end. Okay, so moving on. What would you say? I don't know, maybe give me 1 to 3 memories that like stood out to you when you attended the contest.
Oh gosh, it's a tough one to narrow down. Um, I've already mentioned a few, which helps, so I'm going to ignore those. Um, Tim nearly pushing Sam Ryder into a tram. That was a moment. Well, I don't know what would have happened if that had actually happened, but Tim going down in legend as the man that killed Sam Ryder. But the best thing was, when we were flying home and we were flying through the airport, we ended up right behind the entire UK delegation in the security queue. So we got out of the security queue and we just sort of, we didn't have Tim at this point, so Lewis and I were doing our introvert thing of do we go and say hi? And finally we did, and we just went and sort of congratulated Sam and said what a great job he did. And he was like, "Oh yeah, you're the ones that almost pushed me in front of a tram." So Yeah, okay, anyway, that happened.
We left an impression.
Yes. I'm gonna let Lewis give one, and I'll have a think about if I have any other sort of big defining memories.
Ooh, I think the big one for me is kind of two. Weirdly, it's I I'm gonna just call it one because it's the whole day that really stands out. It was going to Subwoolfer's flash mob in the square in the pouring rain. Absolute. They could not have timed it worse for a flash mob, but I just shirt absolutely drenched, dripping off me, and just doing the it's a ground wolf a banana get do and then right after that, sprinting, it felt like across town, because CT Zenny and Mia Dimish and Marius Bear, but I don't like Marius. Sorry, Marius. You're a far better singer than I am. Um, but yeah, sprinting across town because they were doing a busking session, and I don't know that to me it just kind of crystallized the whole experience of the 2 weeks. Like you could just wander around the city and suddenly Eurovision, and that was incredible. Yeah, it was such a great memory.
I have thought of another one, so I'm going to go for it. And I'm going to apologise because I absolutely cannot remember this lady's name. But we had a couple of issues getting into the live show for Semi 1, which left Lewis and I stood outside the arena while the live show had started. There were a few of us. There were a sort of small group, about 10 of us, sort of having some issues. And there was a lady there who was part of RAI's security team, who was amazing. Like, she was really doing everything she could to get us in there as fast as we could possibly get in there. And once the show had started, she just took her phone out and put the live stream on for us, and we were all just jamming out while we were waiting to get in, watching Albania and Latvia and yelling the word as soon as it came on, and having a little bop to Lithuania. And we finally got in just as Switzerland was performing, which was great because it meant I got there in time for LPS, who deserved better. My sweet children deserved so much better. But yeah, I have so much love for this woman, and I saw her. I can't remember whether I was going into Semi 2 or the final, but I saw her again in the queue, and I was just like, "You're so great! Thank you!" And she remembered us again, and that was very nice of her. So, absolute shout out to her, absolute legend. We love you. I'm sorry I can't name you.
Yeah, I do want to say on that, like we've been kind of harsh to Italy's organisation, and I think like the systems that were in place weren't great, but the people were basically everyone we met was just so helpful and so lovely, and yeah, like I think they could have organised it better, but in dealing with what they had, they were incredible.
Okay, for me, all I'll just say is, I'm trying to think one now. The amount of times I bumped into Cornelia, really, and the fact that, because I've seen her so many times since we started at Mello, and going through the pre-parties, and by the time we got to Madrid and Turin, it's like, "Hi, Cornelia. Hey, Tim," and I'm like, me by first name already. And I'm like, oh. And I was fanboying hard, and especially during the turquoise carpet. Rosie can vouch for this. Like, I was like fanboying, my god. Um, obviously she's my winner, and it got the result it deserved as much as I wanted it to be a be the winning song, but you know, it is what it is, and we accept that in this team, and we don't how do I say this without sounding so nice? We trust the results. And another thing I'd say is just meeting Sam on the street, but please, for the love of God, can we just not say we nearly killed him? Like, I really wish I was on that flight back from Milan, because I was on the flight back to Turin from Turin, which I was a bit gutted, but it is what it is. But yes, Sam and the UK and the social media. I think that's another highlight for me, was just like on Twitter is like Eurovision and then what's going on. Because everyone just thinks that we just always come dead last, and we didn't, and we won the freaking jury vote, and we couldn't. And me and some of the Brits that were on the village where I was, like, we were standing, we were a row full of Brits, and we were just like thinking, this is insane. Like, we didn't think we could be here again, be this competitive, and get this result once again, but here we are. And of course, we knew we couldn't win after we Ukraine got their 400 plus televote points. And Sam took it gracefully. Even when his result got announced, he was just clapping. He was just happy to be there. And I really wish that whoever represents the UK in 2023 takes that into consideration, that, you know, taking part, winning is a bonus. Take it part, enjoy it, make the most of it, which Sam and his team managed to do very effectively. And I feel sorry for the person that's going to represent us in 2023, just because for the fact they've got a big shoes to fill. Like, you have to have a good positive attitude, and that's what Sam has shown us throughout. It's really amazing, and it's making me teary a bit. But in that case, all I wanted to ask you is, what have you learned from doing this Eurovision that you'll take with you if you do end up attending Eurovision 2023? It's my type of question, but I just reformatted for this because I like that type of question.
I think probably it's take an extra week off work afterwards so that I can actually recover. As well as that, honestly, I think it is just kind of throw yourself into everything. Um, but also do take a little bit of time to get outside that bubble if possible. Just because, I mean, we're talking now about host cities in the UK, which is honestly kind of blowing my mind slightly. But some of the cities that are putting their names forward right now are incredible places to explore, even outside of a Eurovision context. They might not be places you would go to without Eurovision being there, but they're still really great places. And I'm sure when we get closer to the sort of host city race, we're going to be producing so many articles about it, because so much of the team are UK based. So we're going to give you all of our sort of biggest hints and tips in terms of where you should go in all of these places. But I think it's really throw yourself into the bubble, but make sure you get a bit of time to explore the city as a whole as well. I think that is so important. And I think it's one of the best things about traveling for Eurovision. We all do this because, yeah, we love the contest and we love the music, but outside of that, we love culture and travel and exploring places. And so don't lose sight of that, even if you're just going for the contest as
Yeah,
well.
and I'd say just talk to everyone and anyone, and just go out and meet people and throw yourself into the whole thing, because it feels like, aside from maybe, like, I don't know, freshers week at university, aside from that, I can't think of I can't think of another environment where everybody's just so up for at any point. Just having a conversation, meeting random people, becoming making new friends from across the globe. It's such an incredible experience, and also take a lesson from Tim and just go up to acts and ask them for ask them for photos and signatures. I'm not sure if the acts will support this message, but like the worst they could do is tell you no. And I have a photo upstairs of me with Malik Harris, and like I mean, what more can you ask for? What more can you ask for? It's yeah, it's yeah. I would say it's just such an incredible social environment, and there are so many lovely people, and you're all there for the same thing. You've all got a topic of conversation. Just like take advantage of that. Meet as many people as you can. Make some new friends. It's such a unique experience.
I think for me, it's I'm just gonna expand on what Rosie said and just say like as much as you're traveling for Eurovision, take some time out as well. I've learned this the hard way in 2018, where I had tickets for 8 out of the 9 shows, and I was just burnt out after that. And I was like, I learned that way. It's like you don't have to attend every single show. Like, if you got tickets to the live shows, then yay, even better, because, you're there for when the results actually happen. So, like, I managed to get 171 and 2, and I got all the jury shows, and obviously I didn't get the final. But, the family shows, use that time to explore. Also, with the press work, it's like, me and Rosie who and Lewis who were on the ground, we kind of like just we worked hard on the first week, but on the second week we were rarely writing as much, just because of the fact that we also need time to ourselves. Like, we're here to enjoy the culture, and luckily enough I got to walk up to the church quite a few times and take a lovely photo of Turin, even though my feet are still thanking me for that. Make the most of it, because you don't know when you're going to go back. I don't know when I'm going to go back to Turin. Might be a year, might be 2 years, might be 50, or might be never. So yeah, do make the most of it. And also, don't lose sleep over things. Like, one thing that I've learned about this pandemic, which I took as a different approach for this Eurovision, is don't lose sleep over things, because your health is wealth. And the fact that you're jeopardizing your sleep just to get some stuff out for some clicks, which I don't understand. Like, we're in an competitive environment, because you're in the bubble, so you want to try and get your content out, but also at the same time try and balance yourself out, so you're not overworking yourself. Even if you're not at the press center, you're still doing the work outside of it, which I understand that you need to do, but at the same time, you're only human. So that's a couple of things that I will take. But we still don't know where we're going at the time of this recording. I mean, heck, we don't even know which country's gonna host it. All we know is that Ukraine is will be unable to host it, and wherever we may end up, hopefully UK, personally, because I am yet to experience a Eurovision in my country for a lifetime, which I know is the same for a few countries as well. But you know we look forward to it.
I think one thing that I did really love about Turin, especially in terms of the stuff going on outside the main contest as well, and also because this would have been done in such a short space of time, is they really did a good job at honouring Ukraine and everything that was going on, especially in some of the stuff they did in the village. And in terms of organisation, I really hope they do similar next year. I mean, I also hope that Ukraine is peaceful and that everything is there is no longer warfare and people are no longer in danger there. But in the event that that is the case still, I really think that what they did in terms of having speeches and some Ukrainian acts, and even sort of the Ukrainian youth orchestra was playing there, I thought that was wonderful. And I really, really hope that the next hosts, whoever they are, do something similar if the state of the world is somewhat similar to how it is now.
All right then. Well, in that case, that brings us to the end of this podcast. I'd like to thank Rosie and Lewis for joining. And have you guys got any final messages to our fans?
Thank you. We're so excited for 2023. Like, subscribe, etc. Please.
Yeah, and if you do, and if it does turn out that that 2023 is in Manchester or Leeds or anywhere else, we know reasonably well. Like, say hi, hit us up.
Yeah.
I really hope that if it does come to the UK, that I can show some people around. I know a lot about Manchester, and it'd be cool to share that.
And that brings us to the end of this podcast. I'd like to thank Rosie and Lewis for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on social media at That Your Site for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also push the notification bell to be one of the first to find out when we have a new episode. We're back and hopefully we'll be more frequent with the episodes. So, thank you very much for coming back and we look forward to the next ones. So, shall we say goodbye?
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.